All right, let's jump right into this explainer. If you've ever felt completely, utterly overwhelmed by the constant ping of notifications, your endless to-do list, or just the general chaos of the modern world, well, you are in the exact right place. Today, we're going to break down exactly how you can reclaim your attention and get your peace of mind back.
But first, we really have to start by asking ourselves this tough question. Because, let's be honest, so many of us wear busy as a badge of honor these days. We cram our calendars, we try to multitask a million things, and we just exhaust ourselves. But Socrates hit the nail on the head when he warned us to beware the barrenness of a busy life. Just because you're constantly in motion doesn't actually mean you're moving forward.
It's kind of crazy when you think about it. Our hyper-connected 21st century society has actually led to this massive fragmentation of our attention. We have more tools, way more wealth, and more convenience than at any point in human history. Yet indicators of burnout and existential distress have absolutely skyrocketed. We are physically safe, for sure, but our minds are practically under constant siege.
Now, here is the wild part. The cure for our modern smartphone addiction and all this anxiety? It's actually a brilliant mental framework that is 2,300 years old. It comes from Stoicism, which was born in ancient Greece right after a merchant named Zeno lost literally everything he owned in a shipwreck. Because it was forged in an actual literal disaster, it turns out it is the absolute perfect operating system for navigating the daily disaster that is your email inbox.
Okay, part 1. The Dichotomy of Control.
So the fundamental idea here is that we suffer mostly because we are constantly trying to control things that are completely out of our hands. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus basically said that our main job in life is just identifying and sorting things into two very distinct buckets: the stuff that is internal and under our choice, and the stuff that's external and totally out of our control.
And this right here perfectly illustrates the dividing line you need to draw every single day if you want to stop wasting your energy. Think about it. You literally cannot control if your train is late, if a social media algorithm is feeding you outrage, or if your coworker wakes up in a terrible mood. But you do have absolute 100% control over your reaction to that delay, your decision to just put the phone down, and the level of focus you bring to your own work.
Epictetus makes it so clear with this thought. Our distress is actually self-imposed, based on how we judge what happens to us. Like, a canceled meeting isn't inherently bad, right? It's your brain screaming, well, this ruins my whole day, that actually causes your blood pressure to spike. The event itself is completely neutral. It's your judgment of it that creates the pain.
Moving on to part 2, Mastering Your Internal World.
Now, there is a massive misconception that Stoicism means burying your feelings and being some sort of emotionless robot. Actually, scratch that, it's the exact opposite. True Stoics strive for this state called ataraxia, which is all about developing profound emotional intelligence. It's about using reason to keep your inner peace, no matter what kind of absolute chaos is unfolding around you.
This is such a fantastic roadmap for real life. The Stoics had this great analogy. They compared that initial, sudden spark of anger to getting hit with a splash of freezing cold water. You can't help that initial physical flinch, but the trap is thinking you have to immediately react to it. Instead of flying off the handle, we can take a breath, realize that anger is just a brief madness, and deliberately redirect all that intense energy into something actually productive.
Marcus Aurelius drops a massive truth bomb for us here. Since our own assessment is what's hurting us, we hold the ultimate power to instantly hit the undo button on our own anxiety. Just think about that for a second. You have the power to revoke your own distress at any given moment. You just have to consciously choose to drop that negative story you've attached to the situation.
Which brings us to part 3, Digital Age Distractions.
Seneca wrote this centuries ago, way before the internet, but man, he perfectly diagnosed the modern tragedy of doom scrolling and constant push notifications. We spend our lives perpetually preoccupied. We might be sitting right there in the room, but mentally, we're miles away, swiping through endless feeds. And because we're so incredibly distracted, we absorb absolutely nothing on a deep level.
So if we categorize our media intake the exact same way we do our diets, it becomes super obvious how commercial algorithms basically act like junk food. They extract our attention by intentionally triggering our outrage. They're literally engineered to bypass rational thought and hit those reflexive emotional buttons. We have to start treating those outrage feeds as digital toxins, and instead load up on mindful nutrients that help us sustain deep, actual focus.
So how do we actually do that? Well, these 3 actionable steps are a real game changer. Introduce physical friction, like simply charging your phone in another room and using a cheap analog alarm clock. Yes, they definitely still make those. Try setting a subtle chime during your day as a mindfulness bell just to snap you out of that zombie scrolling trance. Ultimately, you have to aggressively defend your cognitive space.
Okay, part 4, the productivity illusion.
This quote is just so powerful because it completely shifts our obsession from quantity to profound quality. We don't need to do everything, we just need to do what's truly essential. Every single time you say yes to some trivial bit of busy work, you are effectively saying no to the vital few things that actually move the needle in your life. Do less, better. If you start living by these principles, you'll stop stuffing your to-do list with a million random tasks and actually give yourself the breathing room to do things right the very first time. Multitasking? It's a modern myth. It just leaves you exhausted with mediocre results. True productivity is all about cutting out the noise so the things that actually matter can take center stage.
And blocking out extra time on your calendar to ensure you aren't rushing is such a smart way to apply this ancient wisdom right now. Working frantically against the clock just forces you to cut corners. If a deeply important task usually takes 2 hours, do yourself a favor and schedule 3. Protect your time so you can operate smoothly without that chaotic, frantic energy that always leads to mistakes.
Finally, part 5, reclaiming inner tranquility.
This technique is wild, and it works incredibly well. The Stoics called it premeditatio malorum, essentially negative visualization. It's the act of mentally rehearsing what could go wrong. By accepting ahead of time that the Wi-Fi might drop or traffic might be a nightmare, you aren't thrown off balance when life inevitably happens. You've already solved the problem in your head, which lets you stay completely cool and calm.
Seneca really doesn't pull any punches here. His stark warning about the shortness of life demands that we stop procrastinating our own existence by getting sucked into endless digital distractions. We tend to treat our time like it's infinite, just throwing away hours and days. But reminding ourselves of our own mortality isn't supposed to be depressing. It's a massive, urgent wake-up call to actually live your life right now.
Look, flourishing isn't some quick life hack you can buy online. It's a daily, deliberate practice. You can't just read an inspiring quote and expect your whole life to transform. You have to put in the work to actively filter out the noise, manage those knee-jerk reactions, and focus your energy strictly on your own internal choices.
So, I'm going to leave you with this to chew on today, because mastering your own attention really is the ultimate act of modern rebellion. In a world that is literally engineered to hijack your focus and feed you outrage, choosing to separate what you can control from what you can't is basically a superpower. Thanks so much for diving into this explainer with me. Now go out there and reclaim your time.